right, so we'll call the JP&L committee to order at 6:06 PM. And the first item on the agenda is considering the agenda management vendor selection. So, Sarah, should I turn this over to you?
Sure,
Okay.
so, this is, from a referral from this meeting. I do not recall where we left off. I know there were some questions that were, discussed about cost and then, what that looked like going forward and other options.
Yep.
Included in the packet before we do get into any, major discussions, the gentleman from Provox, Marcus, took the time out of his day to actually look and watch our video and provided some insight to some of the questions, comments that were raised. So I did include that in the packet.
Did we notify both of the video, or is it just that he did it on his own?
He just did it on his own. So both knew when it was being discussed at the meeting. So he took the time to go watch it after it was posted and provide some insight to that. So with that, I guess I will turn it back to you guys if there's further questions, comments, on the two proposals. I know there's, additional discussion on, having minute content, and things like that. So, these are obviously things to be discussed as we go forward with an approval. The one thing I would kind of ask is that if we do go with a vendor, implementation would not start till June. So at this point, I could not try to implement during an election cycle.
Sure.
So we could, do that contract, but probably not start going forward with training and things till after the April election. I wanna make sure that it was a solid, our feet on the ground first before.
And we didn't really get very far in our conversation at the last committee meeting, so, not being on the interview committee.
Yep.
Could you maybe just sort of give like a summary of your thoughts and what was the, how did these two sort of end up at the top?
Sure. So, as far as, the interviews, so we interviewed 4. One of them, the civics clerk, was well out of our price point, and just what they could offer. We were looking for the other 3 vendors could offer well more for that, so they were kinda out just from that standpoint. The other 3, Granicus had been one kinda towards the top of just what, board members had liked on their public portal, viewing some of that past history, that you could drill in and kind of see what meeting it was approved at, what committee it had been years prior, that sort of thing. So they, had kind of came to the top from, that standpoint. A lot of other clerks do use them in Wisconsin, so they do have, a strong presence in Wisconsin. And then there was another, proposal from a company called Ascribe, very similar to both Provox and Granicus. With the interviews, Provox really did stand out to us. He came, with a very well put together presentation. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. He was one of the only ones who really designed the portal to look exactly what it would look like if we implemented it here. And just, he really brought a very solid proposal with. Obviously their prices were a little lower. And the other thing that was very, impressive about him, he was previously a clerk, so he has actually done the job and understands what goes into it. So that was, quite helpful, so he could answer a lot of the questions. The other thing about their proposal, they are very on top of the ADA compliance piece, which is a huge kind of going forward. And so that.
For the video, or
for all of it, yep. Website, content, video.
Granicus, do they?
They,
I think did we select Provox last time? I just don't,
We didn't get
We
that.
didn't get that
Okay,
far
okay.
at
No,
all.
we just, I mean, we had like
Oh,
just
yeah.
a couple minutes to
Yeah,
discuss.
it was a real quick.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
were over time and had to move on.
Um,
Did this, I mean, I find this chart pretty helpful comparing the two. So in year 4 and year 5.
Yeah.
There's still the $8,200 cost for Provox, but then there is nothing for Granicus?
yes, so Granicus did not submit a number proposal for that, so they would do a 3-year contract,
Okay, Got
with
it.
then the potential to renew, and
and
So
their costs do go up every year, so.
I have a question about those costs. They're not apples to apples, so, what I don't understand is, what does that cost include? From what I gather from today's I read this like 15 times, is that it includes the initial training, the download, which they want our IT to do, so we'd have to include some cost for IT consultants, and then, because they do it remotely, and then that's it. But if you have any, so if you have any, it's page 14,
Of,
just of the packet.
of the pack, okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you have any, what is it they call it, remote or on-site professional services, it's not included in that fee. So they give an hourly fee that would be additional, but the other ones don't. It's just not included, so the entire fee, all it is the software.
And that's their support.
That's their support, yeah, if we have any problems. So what's missing from both of these, for our purposes, is how much is it gonna cost with their proposal for our IT staff? Because we pay by the hour, correct? Or no, do we not pay by the hour anymore?
The contract was based off of hourly, but we have an allocated budgeted amount, but we can.
Right.
Some flexibility.
So for instance, if you look at the two, Provox says, and I like them the best, they say, we will give you unlimited storage for 5 years. And as Tyler and I know, if they're gonna be our host, it's gonna be more than 5 years, and if our storage fills up based on video, we currently have a server, a provider that we use for, and when we did that analysis 2 years ago, it was like expensive like this to host the server because of the space. And so one of them gives us, we'll only do it for 5 years, the other one doesn't say anything, so I don't know if there's a cost associated with that. But in the end, I do think we need our IT people to review this, because like Gratis, remember you were saying that Wauwatosa and some others weren't very, the reason is, if you look at the detail, we're not IT experts here, but I'm helping out here. The reason is, they say, you need to read this guide, and if your system isn't up to par, you need your IT professionals to do it, then you're gonna need to do things, because all we're gonna do is provide it to you remotely. And your IT has to then do it. So we also talked about iCloud. Provox doesn't, they have a private cloud server on a Dell server. I don't understand that, but our IT would. Like, how does that, we can sit here and say, yeah, it's in the cloud. The things that are in the cloud, you can get off the web for free. They're made by Google. So the main portion of theirs is a private Dell server that they will maintain, and then they will integrate it with the cloud-based applications.
Is this a Dell server and a server farm site? Is it rack,
It's in
Dell?
Virginia and California. That's where they're located.
Yeah, they have a
Their
secure
companies that attach
host
that.
site
Yep.
and they manage the server, I assume.
At the time, so to remember, we were going through our IT RFP the same
I
time we were doing
know.
this, so this was difficult for us to
I mean,
have
there's
our
no
IT
way we can understand this.
evaluated beforehand. So they have not, because at the time, and then we were transitioning to a different vendor, so they
It's-
have not seen it.
Yeah. And
We
this
could take that, I think your
Yeah.
suggestions and your questions are really, and they're helpful, and I think that it would be a good opportunity to sit down with our new IT people and kind of have a more thorough discussion to understand the logistics, because it's always in the details.
It really is, and I understand half of it only because I had to do that at the state with servers. But I'm not comfortable yet with, when I found the details of how much, storage you get for free, and then all of a sudden you have to pay, it's like, what cost is that? And the fact that their new letter said, it's gonna be for Microsoft product. I was talking to Rebecca today, SharePoint. It was clunky in 2011. It's a free platform, it's in the cloud, but it's a Microsoft Office program. So it's almost like, and now Google, so there's three big companies, Microsoft, Google, Apple. Now Google has come out with thousands of them. And so it's like, all right, has our IT confirmed that it's still clunky, it's still difficult, there's no other, there's no other programs out there? And then a cost associated with the IT, our IT, what it'll cost us, so we have a complete fiscal note.
So, I mean, is your concern that this vendor couldn't, that we don't need this vendor? Like, I'm not sure what you're.
Yeah. When I reread it a million times, my actual deep down gut is, they're taking a free application and they are hosting it and putting their own server to it, so that you have to use them, and it is made better, so they've coded it. They talk about a coding, they have a special coding, which I would like to stay away from, in my own opinion, because then you have to rely on them for the coding.
Mhm.
They do this to a lot of governments, in my experience, and I'm not comfortable that someone that knows IT is not looking at this and saying, this is, taking a free application and putting 3 things into it, and now you're paying all this, and we're gonna store it in Virginia, and you're not gonna be able to get it, and if you want it or you wanna expand, it's gonna be outrageously expensive. So I just wanna make sure that there isn't, we can't just take those free applications and customize them or do whatever. At the state, we used SharePoint, state of Wisconsin.
Mhm.
It was clunky in 2011.
Mhm.
It was brand new. And so I'm assuming that in 10 years or 9 years, there's been updates by Microsoft, but I don't know, cause I'm not, I left there. So it would be good to hear
But,
from.
I mean, it seems like, and, I am not an IT expert, but, nor do I play one on TV, but, but it seems to me that our needs are, significantly more than something that, a Google Doc that we would share, it would provide. I do think the question of having an IT professional look at these 2 proposals and sort of understand, what we're getting, is that, is that cost effective, and does that make sense for the organization? That does make sense, and I think is a reasonable question. But I do think that this is more than something that we internally, even with our IT vendor selection, could have the bandwidth to
I
handle.
agree, that's what it sounds like, but when you read further, it is web-based and client installed. So I think our IT can pick that up really quickly of what is the client installed and is it worth that money? Because there are new programs out there that aren't document sharing, that are more, similar to what this is. They do not have, you have to customize your own templates. So one of them's Legistar, Gravis is Legistar, correct?
They acquired Legistar.
Right, so that's what Milwaukee used for years, and it was clunky when I was there, but, some programs allow you to customize the templates, they will do it, they have one, but our IT has to do it, it takes up to 20 days or 20, I don't know, I read all the details, but I'm not comfortable that we're getting what I feel like we want, there's certain things we want, they're outlined, but what they're giving us, I'm not comfortable that we understand.
Mhm.
It's probably worth, if our tech person talked to their tech person, just to confirm the software compatibility and the hosting and stuff. The idea of us managing, our own belt system is, you'd spend a lot of staff time, and they're keeping the templates up and the ADA accessibility, especially web-based and all that, and the video. We wanna be compliant, there's money well spent. Software is not cheap, but what you get is support, and you aren't.
You don't get support, you have to pay extra.
They're providing these templates, and they update the templates as needed, and as things need to be tweaked, they'll help set it up, so that's what you're
We'll set
putting
it
the
up.
maintenance on. Whereas the base software migrates, is whatever base software Microsoft product migrates their servers, they will migrate their product, where if we're maintaining it, that's a big job. When the server software migrates away from the version you're running and stuff. So there's a lot of value to buying a template and working with them, but it is a good idea to check, have the tech people talk to make sure the file compatibility, and we'll work through some of that.
I did just have the questions of the continuing cost of, you know, and I guess that kind of goes back to, you know, having our IT vendor look over, just understanding like the private cloud server maintenance for $1,200 a year. You know, what, I guess, I mean, they detail, and I wasn't at the interview, so I don't know, you know, how that, I'm sure that during the interviews, they explained sort of their cost breakdown, but, you know, what is that, what does that get you, I guess? Because, you know, I get it for like the initial year, but, you know, going forward, like, what does that $67.50 provide?
What kind of support?
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, and then there's another $1,200, right? $1,200 a year, so for year like 2 on, you know, and just to understand, and maybe some of it is some IT professional stuff that I wouldn't understand, but I think that understanding, you know, I mean, this is obviously a continued investment that we would need to budget for every year. So, just to understand what that incorporates and where we could potentially have some cost savings from where we are now.
So in page 15, they talk about, they say, please, in Provis, I think, but it says, please consult with your tech solution guide. So there's a tech solution guide, so that they want your tech